Welcome to the Pod. I'm here with special guest Meredith Rawlings, life and business coach and human design expert. Joining me today is my co-host for the day, Katie Berigtold, who is a health and wellness educator. Thank you for joining me today. I'm so excited that you were both able to come. As you know, Meredith is a human design expert, and I was thinking, why not have two manifestors, Katie and myself, ask you the questions regarding human design.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a fun combination. You guys kind of coming to your own conclusions and then stumbling upon me afterwards. So it should be interesting to see what questions you guys have and what questions your audience might have.
Thank you so much. Before we get into our questions, I would love for you to share with us a little bit about yourself.
Well, let's see. I am 26. I live in Wilmington, North Carolina, and this is my third year in business. I started out actually teaching. It's funny that Katie is a nutrition expert because I started out actually teaching intuitive eating and body image confidence and self-love and all of that good stuff. And about, I guess, 8 to 10 months ago, I fully pivoted into more of like broad human design coaching and business coaching and life coaching all together. Because I realized most of my clients were business owners and we were talking more about their energy and their self-concept versus what they're actually eating. And there are plenty of people who can help with that. And I was kind of bored of it. And I was way more interested in what's going on in their brains and their bodies than what they're eating and how much they're exercising. So that's kind of how I came to do this. I ended up manifesting a certification program through one of my business coaches for free, which was amazing. And then just kind of ended up meeting all these different people, getting in touch with amazing people who just kind of like, it's been this catapulting kind of experience, which is exactly what happens theoretically when you're on the right path. So we're just going with it. And it's been really, really cool. It's been really, really fun. So that's a little bit about me.
Yeah, that's really cool to know you come from that background.
Yeah, it was really interesting because I don't have a nutrition degree. I don't have any of that. It was just fully, and this is how I am with human design as well, like fully my own experience, figured out how to heal my own eating disorders, figured out, self-taught, how to eat vegetables and how to balance your hormones with food and all of this stuff. And I just realized I could, I wanted to own my own business. And this is one problem that I was pretty confident I could solve for people. And it was really cool because I did. I was really, really good at it. So yeah, that's kind of me, but just trial and error process. Now that I know my human design, that's kind of how I'm supposed to go.
Speaking of which, I'm very curious, what is your human design?
So I'm a projector. That's my type. And my profile is a 4-6. And so that's kind of my main stuff. And I know you guys are both manifestors, so it's very different the way we're meant to work. And that was part of why finding human design was such a pivotal point in my development as not only a human, but as an entrepreneur, because I was working as if I was either a manifestor or a generator. I was like trying to go out there, make stuff happen, do it all myself, working 12 hours a day, strategy, when I'm actually designed to work very systematically, focus on myself, my own learning, my own growth, developing myself as an authority, and receiving invitations from other people, which is still something that I go back and forth. Like I find myself, like today, I just got back from vacation. So I'm like fighting the urge to go like, oh, I need to send messages. I need to do this. I need to go, make this happen. I haven't signed a client in a couple of weeks. I got to go make that happen. Like and I got to sit down and I got to think, I'm exhausted. What do I need? What are the priorities? You know, all of these different things, you know, how do I feel depleted? Like, it's just such a different way of being. And it really changed the way that I run my business, and I don't really burn out as much as I used to. I have my moments. Like today has been a hard day. I'm not going to lie to you. It's been a hard day, but I know that it's temporary. Whereas in the past, I would have like pushed through and it probably would have been a hard month. Do you see what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really interesting because Bree and I are both in the entrepreneur world too. So could you just briefly give us a little snapshot of each type in human design, and then maybe just like a couple sentences about how each one might operate in business a little differently?
Yes. So, and for anybody who wants like more detail on this, I actually have a whole podcast episode on my podcast where I go a little bit deeper into like the basics of human design. I think it's like the third episode maybe. But yeah, so there are 5 types, and the types are pretty broad, but they're also important because they give us a strategy. And so the 2 main things I normally look at when I'm reading someone's chart are their type and their authority first. So the types are manifestor, manifesting generator, projector, reflector, and generator, just like general generator. So manifestor is what you guys are. So you all have this aura that basically it's called like a penetrating aura. So like you go out and you're able to act without help from anybody else, essentially. So you have an idea and you can just go do it. The caveat to that is you want to listen to your authority to make sure that it's the correct action to be taking. So I don't know if you all looked at this, but there's emotional authority, splenic authority, sacral authority, self-projected, lunar, which are reflectors. You all wouldn't be a lunar. And then I feel like I'm missing one, but
I'm splenic.
Splenic. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're actually a really unique example because splenic is one of the less common ones. So you get like an instant, yes, this is it. And it's like an intuitive knowing where it's just like, yep, this is the thing, I'm doing it. It's not necessarily a gut reaction. That's more of a sacral authority where you get like a yes or a no from your body. The splenic is very intuitive and it's only one time. It's not going to repeat itself. So you have to be really, really tapped into your body and really tapped into your intuition. But once you get that yes, it's like you can just make it happen. You don't have to wait for anybody else. You don't have to ask permission. You don't have to get any influence. Like you're just doing it and it's happening and it's coming to you. So a lot of people think that manifestors are the only people who can quote manifest things because it's the name. And that's not true at all. It just means that you all just, you can act a little bit more quickly than other people. And we all know that divine action is really important for the manifestation process. So you all just, there are a couple less steps that you have to wait on. And if you all have any questions, please interrupt me, but I'll just, because I can just get in a zone and just talk about it. And then so after that, you have generators. Those are, I would say, I can't remember the statistics off the top of my head, but they're pretty large. Manifestors and generators are a pretty large portion of the population. Generators are the like worker bees of society. Like they, once they get the correct impulse, they are a freight train. Like they're just getting stuff done and they can make things happen. The caveat with them is that you want to wait to respond to an impulse from your external environment. So manifestors, like I said, you just get your own thought, you get the yes, and then you can do it. Generators are more like you may have a thought, but you want to wait for your authority, and you also want to wait to see if there's anything coming in from your environment that you can say yes or no to. You may see an Instagram ad, you may get a text from somebody, you may see the sun has risen today, and that dictates how you want to exercise. You know what I'm saying? So it's just a little bit different. You want to wait for something to respond to. Once you get the full yes response, then freight train, like full steam ahead. There's no stopping them. And then manifesting generators are kind of a combination of the two. And the only thing that really changes for them is there's a little bit of a an extra bonus step where instead of wanting to respond and then be full steam ahead, it's really important for them to like dip their toes in and almost like test the waters. So if you were a coach, for example, you have an idea for a program and you're like, holy shit, this is the most amazing thing. The manifestor in you wants to just full steam ahead, make the whole plan, put it on Kajabi, record all the videos and put it out there, right? The best thing to do is actually to maybe talk about it on your Instagram page and be like, who's interested in this? Like, does anybody have questions? Like, what's going on? I feel like, and even if people don't respond, you may get an internal feeling of like, yes, this feels so good and I'm going to do it. A lot of people, especially manifesting generators, because they have so much energy, they just do it. And then they get in the middle of it and you're like, nope, this isn't right. And they want to backtrack. And then that wastes energy. And they feel like, one of my really good friends is a manifesting generator. And she says, I feel like I was burning my whole business to the ground every couple months, because she would get in and then she'd be like, oh no, this isn't quite right. And then she'd want to get out. So I had to tell her like, okay, let's just pump the brakes for a second, chill, and let's actually listen to your intuition and let's test the waters and we'll see how it goes. But manifesting generators are so, so powerful, and they're just it's really cool to see them when they're fully in flow. And then projectors are only 20% of the population, and we are essentially waiting to be invited into relationship, which can feel really frustrating because it almost puts you in victimhood if you don't understand what that really means. And I've certainly experienced that, because, you can be like, oh my God, no one's listening. Like, no one's inviting me into anything. No one's asking me any questions. No one wants to hear what I have to say. And what it actually means is that you can put out little invitations for yourself as well. So today I was feeling like I was in that mode of like, my God, no one cares. Like, I was really in my patterns and my conditioning. And so I was like, okay, so how can I invite people in to talk to me today? Because that will make me feel better. I'll feel seen. That's like what projectors want, is to feel recognized. And so I put out little polls on my Instagram story. I was like, what do you need help with? And what's your biggest issue? Is it making money or is it keeping money? And do you find it easier to create relationships or business success? And that really made me feel like, oh, there are still people out there that are actually listening to me and they want to hear what I have to say, or else they wouldn't have answered these polls. So they're like little tricks that you can do. And then reflectors are 1% of the population, and they are, if you look at their human design chart, they have no centers defined. It's all undefined, which means that they absorb everything from their environment. So who they are and what they like and what they want to do can change every single day if they're out of alignment. Like if they're not in an environment that's fully supportive of their gifts and who they are. So that can be really challenging. One of my clients is a reflector, and she's very, very sensitive. Like, she was moving a couple weeks ago, and she was like, I just knew I was going to be a total disaster. And I was just prepared for that. Like, I was exhausted and I was tired. And so I had to communicate that with my, her boyfriend. She's like, I had to communicate that, and I had to fully be in my feminine and let him take the reins on all of these things. And I had to be okay with just resting while there were so many things to do. So there's just like a whole strategy of like, you really do just have to take care of yourself. And then a couple of days later, she was like, oh, this is perfect. This whole house feels amazing. I'm on fire. She got a new job out of nowhere. It's paying her more and like more aligned and all this stuff. So it's just very much like, understand your environment, take it at your own pace. And for big decisions for reflectors, their lunar authority. So it's best to wait for the whole 28 days to make really, really big decisions. But I feel like there's a caveat with that as well, because having worked with her, obviously she's not going to wait a whole 28 days to decide if she's going to buy a house, right? Because you can't do that in this market. So it was more like she took a full 28 days to decide what kind of house she wanted, where she wanted it to be, how much land she wanted to have, the vibe of the house, how many bedrooms. she let herself have time to decide what she wanted there, so that when it came up in her field, she was like, oh, that's it. I know that's it. And I can act on it right now. Does that make sense? It's kind of hard to explain all the different stuff really quickly, but that's in a nutshell what everybody does.
I think it makes perfect sense, honestly, with what you have given us so far. It's very interesting how the approaches for doing something or saying yes for each design. And I'm curious, like, after you got into human design, do you feel that helped a lot with coaching in business?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I was able to tailor it to each person individually. And it's almost like it helped me use certain language for certain clients. Like I know if, for example, if you're a generator, I know you have a tendency to do certain things. Like that's your conditioned way of being. Like you think you have to do this, you think you have to do that. And so I can recognize their patterns really quickly, first of all, and I can use a little bit of language that might trigger them in different ways. And it just gives me an insight into what's going on with them. And what I really love to use human design for is not even just the readings, which I do offer, and it's fun and it's good to know about yourself and how you work and what your energy says and all these things. But the best thing about it is that if you look at your chart, you have 9 different centers in your body that pretty much correspond with the chakra system. And based on if you have those centers defined or undefined, you're most likely to experience certain conditioned patterns. Because if you have it undefined, then you're really susceptible to other people's conditioning. And so that's usually where you feel really weak. So I can look at your chart, for example, Brianna, and be like, oh my God, she has an open heart center. She's definitely struggles with some self-worth. She's not good enough. Nothing she ever does is good enough, like da, 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 da. And I can know that just looking at you right there. So I know if you're having trouble, with imposter syndrome, I'm like, oh, I know exactly why that is. And let's get in there right now and try and decondition that. So it makes it a lot easier, and it empowers the client to say, oh, I know this is just my undefined heart center or my undefined throat center, whatever it may be. And it kind of helps you just disregard that voice. Like, just be like, that's not actually me. I'm obviously absorbing this from someone else, and I can just let that go. Right. So like for me, I was just talking to my mom about this. We just went for a walk, and she was asking me, she was like, so what kind of mindset work have you been doing lately? Because I know you've been kind of experiencing a lot of kind of ups and downs. And I was like, yeah, that's just kind of what happens. Like you have a big expansion. Everything feels like it's going really well. And then for a couple of days, you're like, oh my God, I can't do this. This is terrible. I feel like shit. Like that's just kind of how it goes. And it gets shorter and shorter. I don't know if you guys have experienced that too, but everyone I've observed, I've seen that. Yeah. Okay. It's not just me. I was like, yeah, so I've been doing all this work around, why am I afraid of actually having what I want? What is it that I'm scared of? Why do I think, da, da, da. And it always comes back to, I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. I don't do enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not, it just always comes back to that. And I have to accept that I'm always going to feel like that. And I have to just get over it. And that's kind of what this whole day, I'm like, well, how do I do that? I can tell other people how to do it all day long, but for some reason, it's just really funny. Like, I just know that's part of who I am. And I just have to constantly be like, okay, we're done with that. We're done with that. We're done with that. So anyway, that's how I use it for coaching.
That's amazing. I'm curious too, if you had any personal shifts when you learned human design. Because I know just learning about it a little bit and talking with you today, like a big revelation for me was that my energy kind of ebbs and flows, and that's okay.
Oh, yes.
Because I was in a job previously where I would get scheduled for 10, 11-hour days and just be completely wrecked. I mean,
yes,
the entire weekend after working that way all week. But yeah, I looked around at my coworkers and they seemed fine for the most part. So it kind of left me in a space of really judging myself, like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I just pull these 11-hour days like it's nothing like they do? So that was one really profound shift. And the other was what you mentioned earlier, my splenic authority was really huge for me, because another thing that I did kind of based on how my family did things growing up is really overthink decisions for a really long time, like got super mental, like pro-con list almost. And it would always leave me drained and depleted, and honestly never with a good answer at the end of it after all that thinking. So it was really empowering to learn that I'm just meant to make decisions a little bit differently than people did around me when I was growing up. So those are just kind of some of the biggest ones I've had, but I'm curious if you had any like big ahas as you were learning it too.
Oh yeah, I had actually really similar ones to you. So I would imagine, based on what you just said, that you have an undefined sacral center.
I do.
Yeah. So that was a really big one for me, because even when I was little, my best friend growing up, actually her whole family pretty much, were just machines. They could run on no sleep. They went from gymnastics to baseball to school to camping to, like, they would just go. And I would just tank. I could not hang. I was so tired. And I conditioned myself and trained myself to be one of those people that just goes and goes and goes and goes. And then I would completely crash and burn. And just like 3 days of don't talk to me. I'm vegging out. I'm eating crap, and I'm not like, that's it. And so what I realized was, oh no. And my boyfriend now is a generator, so he's that way too. He can work for like 48 hours straight and be pumped, and like he's tired at the end, but like the whole time he's like, oh my God, this is awesome. And he knows nothing about any of this, but he knows he's a generator. Like, he'll tell you, I'm a generator. Okay, that's great. Good job. And so, yeah, that was a big thing for me, because I was trying to run my business like that for the first 6 to 7 months. When I started, I was working 12-hour days. I was doing all the strategy. I was just hustling, grinding, and I was exhausted. I was sick. I was miserable. I was not enjoying it. I was making some money, and it didn't matter. Like, I realized the high of making, however much money a month wasn't cutting it for me. And so that made a really big difference for me. So if I can work for 4 hours a day and I feel complete, and I feel that satisfied emotion of like, okay, this is good for today, then I can move on. And I give myself permission for that. And I don't need to be working the whole day. Right. So I took about 3 hours before this recording for this meeting, because it's 7 p.m. and I don't need to be working from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. Right. So I'm like, okay, well, I can work for a couple hours in the morning. I can touch base in the afternoon, and then I can do this recording, and that can be all today. That's fine. And it just gives you so much permission to be like, oh no, I can be super efficient, and I also can outsource things, and I can also say no to things. So it just gives you a lot of permission to do that. And then as far as the authority thing, I'm actually an emotional authority, which does not mean that I make emotional decisions. It means that I actually need to wait for my emotions to even out so that I'm at a neutral emotional point. And then I'll get some clarity. It never feels like clarity. It either feels like expansive or contracting. I never get like a bolt of lightning, like this is the thing. There's always like, this could be it. This could not be it. This could be a huge mistake. Should I really give her $10,000? I don't know. But that's how I'm supposed to make decisions. Whereas my mom was always like, well, do you have a gut instinct? What's your gut feeling? I was like, I don't even know what you mean. That makes no sense to me at all. And then when I was looking at it, I was like, oh, that's because she's a sacral authority and she gets that gut instinct. And I don't have that. So I get like a emotional icky feeling. It's very different. So it just totally changed the way that I give myself permission to do things. And it also, I don't know, I felt like, even though some people feel like when they look at their human design, it might feel restricting to be like, oh, well, if I'm this, then I can't do this. If this is how I'm built, then I can't do that. And it's actually really freeing, because you still have permission to be whoever you want to be. It's just, it gives you clarity on why certain things may not work for you, or why certain things may feel icky, or why it works for her and it doesn't work for me, because we really are all different. And I have friends who are manifestors with an emotional authority or generators with an emotional authority. And the way that they think and the way that they operate is totally different than me. And it kind of helps level the playing field in a way, because we all have our roles, we all have our ways of thinking and ways of doing things, and there's value in all of it. And that really kind of opened my eyes and be like, oh, I don't have to do it the way that they're doing it. And they're probably struggling with things that I don't know about. So I don't need to envy them at all, because that was a big thing for me as well. It was very much in comparison when I first started. It's like all of my eating disorder behavior just like transferred to my business. So I used human design and I decondition all of that stuff. I was like, oh, this is all the same. Wow, this is crazy. And then the last thing that really changed for me was, so there's a part of your chart that is called your incarnation cross, which gives you a little insight into your purpose, like kind of why you're here. You can look at the gates that you have in your astrology placements as well to go like way, way deeper into all that. But the incarnation cross gives you a little snippet. And my incarnation cross is the right angle cross of tension, which basically means that I'm here to trigger people. And I am a huge people pleaser. And I like to be sweet and happy and smile at everybody. And I want everybody to be happy and love themselves and love me. And I'm actually supposed to trigger people. That's just what I'm supposed to do. So I was actually talking to my mom about that earlier. I was like, I think I've gotten back into people pleasing a lot lately, and I need to not care if I upset people. And because if I upset them and they're triggered, then they're probably going to change. Like that's a catalyst for them to transform. And that's ultimately what I'm here to do, is to help people transform and elevate themselves. And so, yeah, that was a really big one for me. But it triggered me actually, because I was like, oh, I don't want to do that. I want everyone to be happy and I want them to love themselves. And like, yeah, I do. And that's how I do it, is by triggering them. And then we love on them, and then we trigger them, and then we love on them. And so it's just this, that was really, really cool for me to experience. And I'm still navigating what exactly that looks like and opening up that part of my personality, because that's not something that our society values. Our society wants girls to be sweet and take care of everybody and just, you know, that kind of thing. So
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for sharing that, because I know, like Katie was saying, when you learn about your own design, there are certain things you do. My husband is a manifester as well, and he'll get up and just walk away. We'll be like in the grocery store sometimes, and he will leave without saying anything. And Katie and I were talking about this and how it's actually a trait of a manifester to go and not think about it. So I do agree with you when you start to learn about your traits and you learn those things about yourself, it definitely starts to shift. And I told Katie as well that it's like the ocean and our energy comes in like the waves with the ebbs and the flows. And so I'll go and do a project and I'll be really energized, and then I'll get really tired right after.
oh yeah, absolutely. And you got to be okay with that. And you also start recognizing, it really helps with setting boundaries, because you start recognizing people who have, mostly it's people who have a lot of definition. So like their sacral center is defined, their emotional center is defined, like all of that stuff. If you have your sacral center especially undefined, you'll feed off that and you'll be stoked while you're with them. So like projectors, manifestors, reflectors are the most excited people at Tony Robbins, and they're absolutely fucking killing it. And they're just the life of the party. And then they get home and for 2 weeks, they're completely dead, worthless, right? Yeah. Because we're feeding off their energy and we crash. So I realized I have friends that I schedule time with them specifically when I can crash afterwards, because they have so much energy that when I get out of that energy, I'm like, oof, we're done. Right?
Yeah.
So it really helps with relationships. It really helps with business partnerships. I've done a lot of readings for business partnerships, just to see like, oh, this is how you can leverage her gifts, and this is how you can recognize if she's in this pattern, and she's going to be really, really good at this, and you're going to be really, really good at this. So why don't you all just make sure that you stay in your own lane, kind of thing. And it's same with relationships in general. Like, if you know that your husband is a certain way, it helps you accept it and be like, oh, this is just kind of the way it is. And I can communicate that I need something to change. And if he slips up again, I'll know like, oh, he's just a, you know, he just has an undefined splenic center. And like, that's just how it goes. Like whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah, the example she was giving, so for manifestors, the strategy is to inform, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that was actually really profound in my relationship, because I did do the kind of things she just said, where I would like make plans or go and do things
And not
like,
tell anybody. Yeah. 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 And then you're like, well, I told you. Yeah. Like, well, we're going. Did you not know that?
Exactly. Yeah. And then I'd be gone, and like 4 hours later, he'd be like, where are you? What are you doing? What's happening right now? So yeah, that was a really profound shift for us. He's a generator.
Yeah.
So just kind of letting him know. And, you know, like I heard someone say that it's really not about asking for permission. It's just about the informing.
Yes.
And really just letting him know what I'm up to and when has been a really profound shift for us.
Yeah. And that's a really big one, because it's not about asking permission. And I'm really glad you brought that up, because I think a lot of people, if they're still in a people pleasing condition pattern, they hear that and that immediately goes to, oh, well, let me just make sure it's okay with him. No. That's not it. It's, I'm telling you for my sake, because often if I tell you this is my plan, I'll get a download for something to change, or maybe that doesn't feel good anymore, or it just makes me feel really good that I'm expressing myself. And communication is always good in relationship. And so he's going to feel like he's in the know, and that's just good for the state of affairs in general. And it's just all about being in that strategy that works for you. Projectors have a similar thing where, you know, it's best for us to be invited into relationship. And so I see a lot of, you know, feminist people and coaches and things like that saying, well, just go ask a guy out. Just go do it. Like walk up to him and ask him out. I'm all for feminism. I love it. I think if you want to ask guys out and that feels great to you, or girls or whatever feels great, go for it. I have never once wanted to walk up to a guy at a bar, because that's not what I do. What I do is I'll put out my own little energetic invitations and like do the up down look, and I'll like bat my eyelashes. Like that to me is an invitation. And then if he comes over and talks to me, awesome. And same thing with all these really big relationship milestones. You know, if I'm the one asking, like this is not where I am right now, but if I was in a situation where I was like, well, I want to get married, when are we going to get married? That is so icky for me. It's so out of alignment. The better thing to do would be like, well, have you thought about this? I would love to talk about it and hear your opinion. And then he's like, well, you know, I have thought about it. And actually I was going to ask you next week. I'm like, oh, sweet. Awesome. And like, now we're all on the same page. I'm prepared. Like I'm going to be invited into this amazing relationship, and we can move forward and everyone feels good. Because when I'm asked into something, I feel recognized and I feel special, and that's all I want. Right. So it's just really important to, because as a generator, my boyfriend, for example, likes to respond to things. So if I say, hey, what do you think about this? Then he gets to respond, and he feels really engaged, and it feels like a yes for him. So it's all just really interesting. If everybody's in their own strategy and actually working it, everything kind of just works really, really smoothly, because everyone feels seen and everyone feels engaged the way that they're meant to. It helps a ton with relationships.
Yeah, that's amazing. Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. I don't get to talk about that a whole lot in public. I mostly talk about like, you know, business strategy and things like that. But it's really interesting to see how everything starts clicking when you're doing it all the way you're meant to. And that's where we need to be selfish. And like, it's okay to do that and work on yourself, even if it takes some time, and maybe you let other things slide for a little while. It's just kind of what you got to do to figure it out.
I actually love that about you. I've been following you for a bit since Katie shared your profile with me. And I love that you're a call it like it is person. For example, with the norms, you know, we think we need to work 50 hours a week as entrepreneurs, and we need to die until we get it done. But I've noticed you're like, no, we don't need to do that. And I really appreciate that about you, because we need more of that, and just, you know, standing firm in ourselves.
Well said. And I do try to be honest, because I think a lot of people paint a really rosy picture, especially if you're quote unquote a business coach. You are selling this idea that, you know, everyone can make 6 figures and everyone can, and it's so easy and everything. And it's not. If you're going to actually do it and it's going to be sustainable, you're actually setting up a foundation for your business that's going to work for you for the rest of your life. It's hard work to regulate yourself, to decondition all of this stuff. It's not easy. And that's why I was thinking before we got on the call, I was like, am I going to tell them how much I've struggled today? And I was like, yeah, I am. I've had a horrible day. I've been so up in my head. I've been in victim mode. I've been bitching. I have been so upset. And this is what, like, I have to tell people, because if everyone thinks that my life is perfect and rosy and I never struggle with anything, then I'm just totally out of my own authenticity. And that's something that's so important to me. And I get so tired of watching these people on social media, especially, be like, everything is beautiful and roses and rainbows. And I just do my meditation and I feel gorgeous and beautiful every day and money just flows to me. I'm like, no, sometimes it's not like that. And we have to be okay with that, because I think we make ourselves wrong for having bad days. Just because you have a bad day or a bad week, even a bad month, doesn't mean that you're off the wagon. And this is where I'm sure, Katie, you understand this, but like, people get, it's like a diet almost with the manifestation and the mindset work. Like, no, this is just, if you can be consistent over time, you're gonna have bad days just like everything else. But if you stay the course and you believe in the system that you've created for yourself, then that's all you can do. And don't make yourself bad for having a bad day or make yourself wrong. And that, yeah, I think that's something that's probably the most important thing to me, is to make sure that everybody understands, like, even when you're working your strategy and even when you're doing everything right, you're going to have bad days and it's going to feel really hard, and that's okay. You just have to double down at that point and, you know, remember who you are and stay the course and why you're here.
Yeah. No, I love that. And that's a powerful analogy with the diets, actually.
Yeah, it's so similar. Isn't it crazy?
And another similarity I see too, if I don't know if you agree with this or not, but diets too, I mean, a lot of, you know, coaches, nutritionists, et cetera, are kind of out there pushing one approach. So like, everyone needs vegan, everyone needs to be keto, everyone needs to be keto. And I see similarities between diet and human design with that too, where like, it's really not one size fits all for either. And if you try that approach, you might work it out for a month or two, but then something's probably going to crash and burn, and it's not going to be a sustainable way of being for you.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's so funny how similar it is. And it's because the conditioning is what causes those problems. So we think all or nothing. We think I'll start Monday. We think, well, I messed up, so I have to just give up. We think there's one way to do it. We think, oh, she's doing it, then I can't do it. That's all conditioning. Or I'm not good enough, or I'm not skinny enough, I'm not whatever enough. That's all conditioning. And so if you get to that root problem, which is you believe the story that your conditioning is telling you, then all of the other stuff is going to be resolved. And so helping people with their body image and all of that stuff really helped, because I was doing human design even when I was doing that. It helped me kind of decode, like, oh, this is why you think you need to diet. It's because this, and this. And it's manifesting in this way. So I've been teaching this for years. I just officially started saying that I've been teaching it for like 6 months. So it's really funny. Like, everyone's like, oh my God, this is so different. I'm like, no, it's not. I've been teaching my clients this for years. I'm just packaging it in a different way. I was like drawing them in with like body image and ditch the diets and da-da-da. And now I'm like, nope, I'm tired of that. It's the same stuff though. It's so funny. So I'll have clients who are like, okay, well, now the money is taken care of, but my friendships are exploding. I'm like, great. Same indicators, same mechanism. So we just do the process again. Okay, now my money is fucked up again. Okay, let's go back in there. You know, it's just like, it just transfers, and it's all the same conditioning your whole life. And it gets easier and the voice gets quieter. But yeah, it's so funny how it all works.
For bringing up conditioning, because that I feel like is plastered in our faces all over social media. Like you were saying earlier, is it's so bad where there are people around me that are like, I want to give up, like you were saying. And it's like, no, we don't have to give up. This is human. It's human to do this. That's kind of the hence of the human design, right? It's your human side. So I really do appreciate you coming on and sharing each aspect of that, because people need to hear that.
I think so. And I think it's something that people kind of dance around. But again, like everyone wants to paint such a rosy picture, and we want it all to be easy and pretty and just manifest $100,000. And there's a lot of work that you probably need to put in to do that. And it doesn't have to be super painful and horrible, and it doesn't have to take years and years, but you got to address some stuff. Because if you don't have what you want, then there's some reason why you're not letting yourself have it. And the conditioning is a really good place to look to see, okay, why do I not want this for some reason? You know?
Yeah, I mean, I know we're wrapping up here, and this is not necessarily a brief topic question, but just a little more into the conditioning, because I know you mentioned like the undefined sacral was a really good example, but then I have a defined throat center.
Yeah.
But for a lot of my life, I felt pretty shut down and like it was hard to use my voice. And I think Bree's had a similar experience. So can you just speak a little more on conditioning in general?
Yeah, so it's really interesting because your undefined centers are a really good place to look for where you have conditioned patterns. Like I said, the sacral authority, you know, I associate that with like effort and pushing through and hustling and all of that stuff. The throat center is generally like feeling like you can be heard and you're safe to speak and people pay attention to you, which I have totally undefined. So that's like one of the biggest things that I'm here to learn is like people are listening and I need to stop assuming they're not, kind of thing. And also not to speak when you're not invited to speak, which is, I didn't realize I had that problem, but then I saw my human design and I was like, oh my God, I do interject myself in a lot of conversations that I'm not really invited into. Why do I do that? So yeah, it can be an indication, but even if you have it defined, doesn't mean that you don't have conditioning in that area. And so if you felt like you were shut down and you couldn't express yourself, it was probably just a product of your environment. You know, you were told certain thing, or you saw behaviors modeled through other people, or people just had a general air of like, children are to be seen and not heard, something like that. And so as soon as you can recognize it, part of it is getting down to the root of where did that come from and doing some inner child work around it maybe. And then some of it is just like telling that ego voice, that conditioning to just stop. Like that's not reality. And I appreciate you for trying to keep me safe, because that's what kept me safe and kept me in the group and all of the evolutionary things that we need to do to survive. But I don't need that anymore. And it's really just reaffirming that over and over. And I used to use this with my clients with eating disorders, and it's the same thing, is, you know, name that voice that says, don't say anything they don't want to hear from you. Give it a name. Like one of my clients named it Chad, because she was like, I'll never listen to a guy named Chad ever. Like if there's anyone named Chad listening, I'm sorry, but like she's like, I would just tell him to fuck right off. And so that's what she named him. And every time it came up, she's like, nope. And she still does it as she's running her business now. She's like, okay, the voice that says you're not good enough, no one's going to hire you. Okay, you can leave now. You can leave now. And so it's just kind of a combination of all of that stuff. And I'm actually about to launch a group program that's going to address all of these things and like how to do it step by step and how to just keep continually doing it so that you don't need to. I feel like we all feel like we need to invest in new programs and learn new things over and over. But my goal with this is so that you have a process and you just apply the process every time something comes up with your conditioning. So yeah, I'm just kind of putting together everything I've learned into a program and letting everybody have it. Cause I talk about it a lot and I realized I'm not teaching it, which is so dumb. Like, why am I not teaching this to everybody? So yeah.
That sounds amazing.
When will you be offering this?
So it is coming out in July. I haven't picked an official date. I have to wait until I'm at an emotional neutral. I'm at a low today. Tomorrow I'll probably be at a high, and then maybe by Wednesday we'll be at a neutral and I can make a decision. But it's coming out in July. I'm very set that it's coming out in July, and I think I'm going to teach it live the first time. So anybody who enrolls in it now, it's going to be taught as we go, because I can feed off your energy, which is another thing. In the past, I would have tried to create the whole program and then sell it. And now I know I work best when I can feed off the energy of the people in the group and create as I go. So the people who get in now are going to have a really special experience. It's going to be kind of tailored specifically to you guys. So yeah, I'm going to do that in July, and I'll make sure it's all over my Instagram and everything, website, all that stuff. So it'll be July.
So before we go, I would love for you to share your social media platforms and how our guests can find you.
Oh, yes. So my Instagram is where I hang out the most. It's @ Meredith Rawlings. I have a podcast that you can find through that link in the bio. And I also have a website, meredithrawlings.com. And that's where you can go if you want to book a human design reading, or if you want to read about the other programs that I have. I think 1 or 2 openings for private coaching if you want to just go ahead and do that. So yeah.
Yay. Thank you so much. This was incredible. I enjoyed this so much, and your knowledge is amazing. And I definitely echo what Bree said. I love that you just tell it like it is. It was so valuable for everyone. And thank you for being so real. It's really nice to see that level of authenticity from someone.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Because I had that debate. I was like, am I going to sell out and pretend like everything's cool, or am I going to be honest and tell them I'm having a bad day? But I'm really glad I think this is such good timing, because I feel so much better now. I feel like you guys helped me come up and be like, oh man, I do know what I'm talking about. This is so fun. I don't want to quit. This is great. So this is perfect timing.
Before you go, I just had one more question. What is your podcast called? I would love for our audience to be able to follow you.
So it's called Designed and Aligned, and it's on Spotify, and it's designed and then a +sign aligned, which I think if you type into, you'll find it anyway, but yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll definitely check it out. I'm excited.
Thank you.
Well, thank you both for joining me today. And as many of you know that are listening, I like to end this with my beautiful affirmation. So with that, you are loved, you are worthy, you are cherished, and I am proud of you. Until next time on the Bree Pod.